We are going all the way to Ethiopia today, and we are going to be making Doro Wat. For those who don't know, Doro Wat is an onion-based, spicy, fragrant, and delicious chicken stew. And it's usually served over injera, which is a type of spongy flatbread, which is also a favorite in Ethiopia. For this recipe, we are going to be using a handful of ingredients. But not to worry, I have listed all the ingredients with their measurements down there for you in the description box below. So be sure to check that out. This recipe calls for red onions, and as you can see, I've got 4 large bulbs of red onions here with me. Ideally, what we are supposed to do is to use a sharp knife and patiently mince this onion. And when I say mince, I mean finely mince. However, I like to make things a little easier in the kitchen. So what I do is just to cut this onion into big chunks, and then I pour everything inside my food processor. And I used the pulse button to process it a couple of times until I get my desired fineness. As you can see, these onions are well minced. So now I'm going to be adding these minced onions inside my pot. I'm using a large pot for this, and this is what you need. Don't make a mistake of using a small pot, because you might have to change the pot in between the cooking process. And we are going to be cooking this down on a low heat. We want it to simmer down, no rush at all. And this is going to take anywhere from 40 minutes to 1 hour. So while this is cooking down, I'm going to be processing my chicken. Ideally, when making Doro Wat, we are supposed to use a whole chicken and divide that into 12 pieces. And that is going to represent the 12 tribes of Jacob. This is quite an interesting recipe. However, I don't have any whole chicken in the house today. What I have is drumsticks. So feel free to use any part of chicken you want for this recipe. I know the chicken breast also work just as well. So what I'm doing right now is just peeling off the skin of the chicken. Once the chicken drumsticks have been nicely peeled, the next thing is to add some water and vinegar over this chicken. And this water vinegar solution is not only going to clean this chicken, but it's also going to help to tenderize the chicken. So we are going to be leaving this to soak while we are cooking down the onions. Our onion is cooking really nice and good. And don't forget, we have to be stirring this every now and then in order to prevent burning. So I'm going to cover this again and come back to it and stir it again, back and forth like that, until we reach our desired consistency. A good way to know that the onions are ready is when they begin to stick to the bottom of the pot. That's the first clue. Then the second clue is the color. As you can see, the color is looking like a dull pink here. It has changed from that bright color to this. So at this point, we know we are ready to move on to the next step. For the next step, I'm just going to be cleaning my chicken thoroughly. We are going to wash away the vinegar and rinse them a couple of times. Once that is done, we are going to be setting them aside. I'm now going to be adding my oil inside my cooked down onion, and we are going to leave the onion to cook with the oil for about a minute or 2. Now add the minced garlic, the minced ginger, tomato paste, berbere spice, and salt. The berbere spice is quite spicy because it contains a lot of spicy pepper, so that is why I like to add tomato paste inside my Doro Wat stew to tone down the heat a little bit. If you like it really hot, it's fine, you can skip the tomato paste. The whole house is smelling really good right now, but we are not yet done. The next thing is to add our chicken inside the stew. And I like to give the chicken a couple of slashes so that the stew is going to be able to penetrate deeply inside the chicken. You don't have to do this, it's just my own way of making the chicken really absorb the stew. I'm also going to be adding some water in here, very little water. You don't want to go overboard because this is a thick stew. Also, the chicken in the stew is going to release its own juices, so we have to be careful with the amount of liquid we add. Now cover this up and leave it to cook, still on a low heat. While the chicken is boiling, I'm going to be boiling my eggs. I'm using about 6 eggs today, but you can use more or less, depending on your preference. So here we go. My stew has been simmering for about a whole hour now, and my house smells amazing. But we are not yet done. At this point, I'm going to be adding my spiced clarified butter. And if you don't know what that is, I have also explained that for you in the description box, or head on to my website. You have all the details you need for this recipe there. So now I'm also going to be adding my boiled eggs, because you also want the eggs to absorb some of the flavors of this stew. So we leave the eggs to cook inside the stew for about 5 to 10 minutes. And there we go, our Doro Wat is ready. It's a long process, but I tell you, it's really worth the whole stress, because at the end of the day, you are going to be rewarded with this delicious stew. And I like to make it in excess because it freezes very well. You can just bring it out of the freezer and warm it whenever you need it. When I make this stew, I don't only serve it with injera. I also serve it over rice, and it pairs perfectly well. Now, you don't really have to take me for my word. Just try it and come back and tell me about your experience. So that is it again for today. Thank you very much for spending your time with me. Until next time, I'll talk to you shortly. Enjoy.